Hi, this video is going to discuss the popular podcaster Andrew Huberman, and we're going to talk about how he presents science. So the recent New York Magazine article, a lot of people focus only on him having multiple affairs and how he was treating the different women he was involved with. But I think there's a bigger story. And part of the story is that he appears to be a pathological liar. But more importantly, we have to examine how he combines science with entertainment and capitalism. So, in many ways, you can think of him as a used car salesman, but he presents himself as a university professor, although it seems like he's not currently teaching at Stanford, and it's unclear what the status of his lab is, or if even there is a lab at this point. And at the same time, he's promoting science, and he has millions of viewers. Um, he's also selling different things like supplements, and these supplements have questionable um, effects on people. And because they're not regulated by the Drug Administration, they can make outrageous claims without any evidence or proof. And so another issue is he often mentions different scientific research studies. And if you look at the studies themselves, for instance, the ones they used to discuss the flu vaccine, they're often very old studies or very small studies. His own background is on looking at vision in mice. And he often talks outside of his expertise, which is okay if you rely on studies that have been well researched and tested. But a lot of times he combines together a lot of common sense advice, but he adds to it some type of scientific explanation, which is questionable. And so we've seen this in his presentation of different vaccines. And even with the COVID vaccine, he presented a lot of false or misleading information. And so when people use their power and their audience in order to give advice that's medical advice or scientific advice, bad advice can end up really harming people and could cost people's lives. So one thing that we see in him and other similar type of podcasters, that there is this undermining or underlying perverse incentive in the sense that they often are going for clicks. They're using their fame or their audience in order to make money. And so once again, we have this issue of instead of science trying to present the truth and discover the truth and communicate the truth as best as it can, it's often being corrupted by the pursuit of money and personal gain. And there's often this common thing in male podcasters of this kind of endless speech where they go on and on talking about everything and anything. And people turn to these sites because they're looking for a quick fix. Now, in response to the scandal, we've seen that many of his supporters, and there's many of them, basically focus on the story about the women and say it doesn't matter if he's a womanizer, if he's, having relationships with many women at once. Um, and they defend him and they ignore everything else that was mentioned in the article, like the possibility that he falsified his own personal story, that he's selling these questionable supplements, that much of his science that he presents is questionable. And this kind of belief in these gurus shows the role of what Freud called transference, and especially the notion of idealization, that when we idolize an authority, we often suspend our criticism and our reality testing. And ultimately, people go to gurus and these experts because they want to be saved. They want someone else to tell them what to do and how to change their life. And when people criticize these gurus, then you often have a group of people lining up to defend them, even if there's really nothing to defend. So, what are the possible solutions? Well, one thing is it's important for people to stop getting life advice from online grifters. Often, the research that they present needs a deeper analysis. And I think a problem is people generally don't understand how science works and what peer review science is and how science is tested and what is a good study versus a bad study, what is a good sample versus a bad sample. And so people are susceptible to following this kind of pseudoscience or false advice. So one thing to do is to think about like the money and the incentives. Like he makes money, he's selling different products on his site. He also is trying to get as many clicks as possible to get a higher viewership. And so he's not necessarily driven by the goal of pursuing truth and communicating truth. And so we also have to stop believing that these gurus have magical solutions. And in reality, real change often takes time. And one thing that I see throughout a lot of these advice, especially the mental health area podcast, is that they really don't deal with psychoanalysis because psychoanalysis takes time. Psychoanalysis takes, has to take a deeper analysis of things. And so if you want to hear more about these issues, you can go to my Substack. It's called Psychoanalysis, Politics, and Media. Thank you.